After a 3-year-long bad relationship with her boyfriend, Casey ran away and moved to this small, sandy coastal town. She was hiding out here, disconnected from her past, where she hoped of starting over and living a normal, peaceful life. With much struggle, Casey rented a cheap room in town and was able to get a job as a waitress at a beachside restaurant. It was a long travel from home, and there weren't any transport in the area. But since one of her co-workers, Jenna, lived in the same direction, she had been dropping her off after work. This sandy coastal town was quiet and calm, but it was a popular tourist destination. The restaurant would often be packed with tourists. But by the end of the day, business slowed down, and those who came were rather questionable people. Here to drink at the bar that would be open till midnight.
Hey, sugar, why don't you bring us a drink?
Here's your order. Where are you going, sweetheart? Sit down and have a chat. You know, I've never seen a woman as beautiful as you. Casey had heard tons of compliments while working here. Men flirting with her, calling her sugar, proposing their love, and some drunkards who even proposed her marriage. But she knew the true nature of men, how men really were, and what men really wanted from her. They didn't want love, they wanted her for a night, so they could go back and share their thrilling story with their buddies of a one-night stand while on vacation. But at least the good news was, Casey had made a good tip today. However, going home tonight would be an issue, since Jenna didn't come to work, and Casey would have to walk almost 40 minutes back to town. It was 12:15 when Casey left the restaurant. It was dark out, the shore was literally empty, but after a long, humid day, now the weather was cool and soothing. Casey clutched onto her bag tightly as she walked down the road enjoying the ocean breeze. But a while later, she spotted a few men, probably a bunch of thugs on their motorbikes, laughing amongst each other. She walked on the opposite side of the road, hoping she could just pass by without being noticed. But numerous thoughts rushed through her mind. She was carrying a lot of money. What if they tried to mug her? What if they tried to take advantage of her? Since Casey had moved here, she had once read news of people who had gone missing from this town. Fortunately, she always carried a knife in her bag. But would she be able to face 3 of them? Casey breathed out in relief as she passed the men without trouble. But within a while, she started to hear a few voices behind her. Look at that visual. She's hot. What a beauty. From the front and the back. Casey slid her hand into her bag, clutching onto her knife, as she caught sight of the men. They had left their motorbikes behind and were following her. She quickened her pace as the men quickened theirs. But the closer they got, the more anxious she became, knowing she might be in trouble tonight. It was all of a sudden, she noticed an old woman on a wheelchair pulling up on the road from the beach side. Erica, where were you? I've been looking for you everywhere. You were supposed to take me home. Come on now, push me, I'm exhausted. Passing a glance at the woman, Casey realized she was trying to help her. Yes, I'm so sorry for being late. As they walked down the road, the thugs backed out and Casey let out a deep breath. Are they still following? They're gone. That's good. I usually take a stroll on the beach at night, but what are you doing here at this time? I recently moved to this town. I work at the nearby restaurant. My colleague usually drops me home, but she didn't come today, so I'm having to walk home. Where do you live? It's quite some distance from here, about half an hour away. It won't be safe for you to travel so far at this time, but we've almost reached my house. Why don't you stay the night here and tomorrow try to go home early, alright? Thank you so much, that would be really helpful. A walk away down the shore, Casey followed the elderly woman to a small house where she unlocked her backyard fence. Stepping in, Casey was surprised to see a luscious plant nursery. She hadn't seen a garden like this in any other house in this sandy beach town. Casey actually thought it was impossible to grow so many vegetables here, but this garden was beautiful. Wow, your nursery is beautiful. I haven't seen a garden like this on a sandy beach before. These are my babies, the elderly woman said as she went inside. Casey followed after her. Everything was neat and tidy in her small house. A couch, a table, a few handmade souvenirs. Casey sat down on the couch, noticing a small framed picture of a young woman on the table. Is this your daughter? Yes, Erica, but it's been 6 years since she left me and went to live her own life in the city. The last time I saw her, she was only 16. I don't know how she is now. After she left, she never cared to contact me or see how I'm doing. I was a single mother to her. I raised her with everything, but she's forgotten me now. I'm so sorry. Casey listened to the woman, feeling a bit strange herself. She had done something similar, running away from her boyfriend. It's alright. By the way, I haven't even asked you your name. It's Casey. Casey, I'm Ellen Aldrich. You must be tired pushing this wheelchair all the way here. Why don't we cook up some dinner? Would you mind helping me? Yes, of course. Then why don't you bring some vegetables from the garden, and I'll cook up some noodle soup. Casey went out to the garden and picked out some celery, carrots, mushrooms, and parsley. Miss Aldrich then prepared a hearty soup before she served Casey a steaming bowl. Try it out. Casey took a sip with a smile. Wow, Miss Aldrich, this is delicious. Erica used to like this soup so much. If she were here, she would have been about your age. Have your soup. I'll bring some clothes for you. When Miss Aldrich returned with the clothes, she was surprised to see Casey was washing the dishes in the kitchen. You're done with your soup so soon? Yes, Miss Aldrich, it was delightful. I'm almost done cleaning up. It's alright, you don't have to do all this. I'll do it tomorrow morning. No, Miss Aldrich, it's the least I can do. After cleaning up, Miss Aldrich escorted Casey to one of the rooms. This used to be my daughter's room. You can sleep here tonight. As Casey changed out of her clothes and settled down, Miss Aldrich dropped by again with a glass of water and a bottle of pills. I have a hard time sleeping in this house. The windows and doors all make a lot of noise all throughout the night, so I usually take some meds before I sleep. It helps a lot. You should take some too, otherwise you won't be getting much sleep tonight. It's alright, Miss Aldrich, it won't be a problem for me. As you wish, but if you do hear anything, don't be afraid. It's just that this house is made in such a way. It's only the wind, and don't worry about thieves or anything of the sort. This area isn't that bad, so rest in peace. Good night, Miss Aldrich. As Miss Aldrich left to her room, Casey lay down thinking how nice the woman had been to her. If it wasn't for her, Casey would have been in trouble. She really needed to make arrangements for her transport soon. Sometime into laying in bed, Casey started to hear the sound of a light rain pour outside. From the window, Casey could see the gentle waters of the ocean. She opened the windows to let in the air and soon fell asleep. But it was sometime in the middle of the night that she woke up hearing a loud noise. Casey sat up startled to realize it was only the windows. They opened and closed in the winds. Casey got up and locked them and returned back to her bed. But within a while, she heard another noise. Casey pulled down her blankets, seeing the door creak open and close. Open and close. A bit frightened, Casey slowly stepped down from the bed, trying to think of every possible explanation, but she couldn't. She walked out to the hallway to see if there were any other windows open. Maybe it was the wind. But all other doors and windows were shut. Casey went to the kitchen to get herself some water. After drinking, she quietly placed the glass on the counter and turned to head back, when she heard a loud shatter as the glass fell to the ground as if it had been thrown. How did that happen? Casey had carefully put the glass in the middle of the counter. There was no way it could fall like that. All of a sudden, she froze in fright, hearing the loud banging noise of the window in her room again. She immediately ran back, absolutely bewildered to see the window unlocked and banging vigorously in the wind. She tried turning on the lights, but the switch wasn't working. The lights weren't working. She hurried to close the window again, but the minute she let go, the window burst back open. Casey stepped back as her heart raced. Something wasn't right. That's when she heard a low rumble. She turned around, horrified to see the bed, the wardrobe, the bookcase shaking. She looked out. It was still outside. This wasn't an earthquake. This was something else. Why were all the furniture shaking like this? In fright, Casey ran to call Miss Aldrich, but the minute she stepped out into the living room, her heart jumped, seeing Miss Aldrich laying on the floor unconscious. "Miss Aldrich!" Casey ran to her and tried shaking her to wake her up, but it was when she turned her around. She fell back in shock. There on the floor lay not Miss Aldrich, but her daughter, Erica. Casey was now petrified in fear. She knew she had to get out of here. But as she ran out the back door, her feet slipped along the wet, muddy ground, and she fell onto the soil amidst the plants. As she tried to get up, her hand suddenly touched something in the soil. What was this? Bones? As Casey stared at what looked like a skull in sheer horror, she suddenly heard the door creak open. Miss Aldrich stepped out, now walking, a menacing glare in her eyes. "Where do you think you're going?" "Are you Erica Aldrich?" "Yes, I'm Erica Aldrich." 6 years ago, Miss Aldrich and her daughter Erica lived in this house by the shore. After Miss Aldrich's husband left her, she raised her daughter in this house in the sandy coastal town. But having gone through heartbreak, she was quite possessive about Erica. However, growing up, Erica became fed up of her mother's insecurities and wanted to move out. "Mom, I can't live in this sandy coastal town anymore. There's nothing here. There's no future here." "But Erica, where are we going to go?" "Not we, me. I'm fed up of you. I'm leaving. Now I know why Dad left you, why I had to grow up without a father. It's because you're crazy. No one can live with you." "No one can live with me? No. Now you will live with me forever, just like your dad." That night, when Erica tried to leave the house, Miss Aldrich fatally injured her, and when she died in that state, she buried her in the backyard. Then, living all alone, Miss Aldrich soon started to feel depressed. Until one day, she noticed the greenery begin to blossom from their graves. Greenery in the midst of this infertile sandy beach. From then on, Miss Aldrich began caring for the vegetation and started her own nursery, taking care of her plants like her babies. But it wasn't long before the vegetation again began to wilt, and Miss Aldrich realized she needed more, otherwise her babies would not sustain. It was on one rainy night, while she was out tending to her nursery, that she slipped and sprained her ankle and suddenly got the perfect idea. She got herself a wheelchair and pretended to be a helpless old woman asking people for help so she could bring them back home. "Young man, would you please help me reach my house?" "Sure, miss. Which way is it?" She brought them inside, where instantly they would be impressed by her nursery. And later, she would offer to cook them vegetable soup, with which she drugged them. And once they would be senseless, Miss Aldrich would bury them in her backyard as food, nutrition for her babies. The circle of life. "You're the daughter of Ellen Aldrich that went to the city." "Yes, but after my mother's demise, I decided to return back here." "I'm so sorry for your loss." "It's all right." Casey had just gotten lucky that night, when those thugs were following her, when Miss Aldrich tried to drug her. "You're done with your soup so soon?" That night, when Casey was about to have the soup, the bowl had suddenly spilt over. Casey felt horrible having ruined the food Miss Aldrich made for her. So she quickly cleaned up and lied to her, saying she had it. But that night, after having that unusual experience, when she made the gruesome discovery in Miss Aldrich's backyard, and of Miss Aldrich herself, Casey didn't back out. Casey took the package and returned inside her new home, where now she lived under a new identity. It's been many days since people have stopped going missing in the sandy beach town, but she still wondered the unusual experience she had that night. Was it because of the lower dosage of the medication she had in those few spoons of soup, or had it been something else? Casey stepped out to the backyard, taking in the fresh air. The nursery was now wilted and dried up, all except for the far corner where bloomed the only remaining patch of greenery. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.